Hello guys, welcome to Learning with JGO. Today in this video, I shall discuss with you simple tips that would enable you answer WASSCE English language comprehension questions effectively and confidently. Once again, I encourage you to like this video and subscribe to the channel if at the end you find it very informative. Without wasting much time, let's dive right into today's lesson. The way I would like for us to understand how to answer comprehension questions is by taking a look at the nature of questions that are always asked. Knowing the nature of questions asked by WAEC gives you a head start and complete advantage in answering comprehension questions over your colleagues who probably think that comprehension passages are easy to answer and that all you need to do is to read the passage and answer the questions asked. So, let's look at these questions. The first type of questions you will encounter as part of your comprehension questions is called the direct questions. Now, direct questions are questions whose answers are found within a given passage. Such questions are the first 2 to 3 questions asked under the list of questions. The key point about direct questions in comprehension passages is that you don't need to interpret or make inferences. The answers are right there in the passage, often presented in a straightforward manner. Your primary job is to find and accurately extract the information directly from the text. There is no way you wouldn't find the answer of a direct question in a passage. So, to get the correct score for the first 2 to 3 questions, you should read the passage thoroughly, after which locating your answers wouldn't be a difficult thing. For instance, you could be asked direct questions like, give 2 reasons why the boys disobeyed their teacher. What was John doing before the bell rang? Quote a sentence in the passage that suggests that John was angry. All these are direct questions whose answers will definitely be found in the passage. Let's take a look at this sample passage in order to throw more light on how direct questions can be posed. Stephen, a diligent worker, would arrive at the office every morning with a warm smile, greeting everyone he encountered. His routine was consistent. He would first exchange a few light-hearted jokes with the security guard, then he would grab cups of coffee for his colleagues while sharing stories from the weekend. Finally, he would arrange his desk, aligning everything with precision. However, as time passed, tensions arose between Stephen and his co-workers due to disrespect from his colleagues. Despite his initial friendliness, conflicts escalated. Eventually, Stephen made the difficult decision to resign, seeking a more harmonious work environment. Now, these are the questions that are asked. Write down 3 things Stephen does when he gets to work. What was Stephen's fate at his workplace? What brought about the tensions between Stephen and his co-workers? So for question 1, what are the 3 things Stephen does when he gets to work? In the passage, Stephen would first exchange some jokes with the security guard, then grab cups of coffee for his colleagues, and then arrange his desk to precision. What was Stephen's fate at his workplace? He resigned, or Stephen resigned. What brought about the tensions between Stephen and his co-workers? Disrespect. So it was disrespect that brought about the tensions between Stephen and his co-workers. You notice all the answers to these questions were from the passage. A careful read of your passage and you will identify answers to direct questions. They are the easiest. The next type of question I will talk about is the inferential question. Now, the answers to inferential questions, unlike direct questions, cannot be found directly within a given passage. Inferential questions are usually implied, and so they demand implied answers. When we imply something, we are actually trying to make a guess about that thing based on what someone else has said. Inferential questions are meant to test your thinking and cognitive abilities by forcing you to think outside the box and generate your own answers to questions based on the passage given. So what happens is, when an inferential question is asked, you are given clues from the passage in order to make a logical guess for the answer. You ought to read between the lines and generate the answer. I will give you an example. The farmer, upon arriving home, slept in a flash after a long day's work. The farmer upon arriving home slept in a flash after a long day's work. Question. Suggest why the farmer slept immediately upon getting home. What do you really think got the farmer sleeping immediately after he got home? So the answer to this question is the farmer slept immediately because he was tired. This answer is not present within the passage. It is a guess that was made based on clues given from the passage. Let's take a look at this too. Mrs. Linda picked up the toys on the floor and placed them gently in a box. She collected all the mess in the house and disposed them. Her neighbor's children often came to her house to play with her child. Mrs. Linda would always make ice creams for them and then prepare a delicious meal afterwards. Despite the continuous destructive activities of the children in the house, everything was always properly arranged, and that has earned her plaudits from her neighbors. Her doors, nevertheless, was always opened to children. Question 1. In one word, describe Mrs. Linda. Question 2. Why do you think the doors of Mrs. Linda were always open to the children? Question 3. In 2 different sentences, describe Mrs. Linda. So the answers to these questions are as follows. Question 1 says in one word, describe Mrs. Linda. Tidy. Tidy is the answer. We are using one word to describe Mrs. Linda. Question 2. Why do you think the doors of Mrs. Linda were always open to the children? The doors of Mrs. Linda were always open to the children because she loved children. Question 3. In 2 different sentences, describe Mrs. Linda. Mrs. Linda is a kind person. Mrs. Linda is very neat. So, you realize that all the answers given were not from the passage. We had to extract the answers from the passage based on first the clues from the passage and then our own logic. The next type of questions that you will expect from a comprehension passage are questions on figures of speech, idioms, or proverbs. Now in this section, you are required to know the meaning of a statement or phrase from the passage and sometimes identify what figure of speech it is. We use figures of speech as a way of expressing a thought without actually saying it directly. So that when I say, the man has kicked the bucket, you know I mean the man is dead. When I say, Matilda cried a bucket of tears, you know that this statement is a hyperbole. I got myself shivering by my father's roar. You could be asked what this means and identify the figure of speech that is used in the statement. A simple answer about what this statement means could be, my father was angry. The figure of speech used in the statement is a metaphor. Why is it a metaphor? Because my father is being compared directly to a lion which roars. You get the idea, right? Examples of figures of speech include personification, metaphor, euphemism, oxymoron, onomatopoeia, etc. The lists are endless. Find them, study them, and get yourself acquainted to them so that you're able to answer questions under that section of questions. Question number 4 we should expect to answer under the list of comprehension questions are questions on grammatical names and functions. This aspect I think is a bit tricky and sometimes difficult for candidates to answer. You are supposed to identify and explain the grammatical function of a phrase or clause in a sentence. Simply put, you are required to know the roles that words in sentences play and how those roles qualify the given sentence or phrase. Whether words in an extract function as a subject or an object, you have to know. Whether an underlined phrase is a noun phrase or whatever, you are supposed to know. These examples will illustrate what phrases and clauses are, including the types and functions. Let's take a look at this question. The researchers concluded that most of the clinical treatments and diagnoses have increased the lifespan of people in Tanzania. What is underlined in this statement is most of the clinical treatments and diagnoses. Question 1. What is the grammatical name of the underlined in the sentence? Question 2. What is the function of the underlined in the sentence? So, how do we answer question 1? We start by identifying whether the underlined is a phrase or a clause. The underlined is not a sentence, nor is it a clause. It is a phrase. How do we know that the underlined group of words is a phrase? You can tell by observing the absence of a subject or a verb in the sentence. There is no subject as in the doer of an action, and there is no verb. Now I want to know what type of a phrase the underlined group of words is. We do that by identifying the head word in the phrase. The head word is the main word. The head word is the word in a phrase that when taken out of the phrase does not make the entire sentence logical or meaningful. Clinical treatment and diagnosis are the head words in the phrase, and they are all nouns. Therefore, the grammatical name of the underlined is a noun phrase. The next question, which is question 2, says, what is the function of the underlined in the sentence? The underlined phrase functions as an object of the verb concluded. I hope you understand why the underlined phrase is an object. Objects are usually the receivers of the action produced by the subject in a sentence. Let's take a look at another example. John returned the stolen money as soon as the police arrived. The underlined is as soon as the police arrived. Is the underlined a phrase or a clause? Let me give you some seconds to think about it. This is certainly a clause. Why? Because it has a subject and then it has a verb. Where is the subject? The police. Where is the verb? Arrived. Now what type of a clause is it? It is an adverbial clause. Why is it an adverbial clause? It is an adverbial clause because of the use of the words as soon as. What is the function of the adverbial clause? It modifies the verb returned. That is to say, it describes the time and manner in which the money was returned. Other type of clauses or phrases are the verb and adjectival phrases or clauses. Usually, verb clauses are identified in independent clauses with a subject and then the verb performing the action. The verb clause can function as a declaration, exclamation, question, and as a command. Adjectival clauses usually are identified when you see words like who, whom, whose, where, which, that, independent clauses. These words modify or give more information about a noun in a statement. The final type of questions we will be discussing are questions on vocabulary. You probably saw it coming, right? Yes. So here the words in the passage are underlined and you are asked to find synonyms to them or substitutes that would fit in perfectly if the underlined words were taken out. Answering questions here, I'm afraid, depends on the amount of vocabulary you've learned. This is why you are encouraged to read lots of books so that you can build upon your vocabulary and your articulation of words. It helps greatly when answering questions in this section. Example: handle these items with care. They are delicate. So I require to replace the word delicate with a synonym. This synonym is not supposed to change the meaning of the entire sentence. Fragile can be that word. So therefore we can say, handle these items with care. They are fragile. Another example: I will not tolerate this lackadaisical attitude from you. A synonym of the word lackadaisical is apathy. If you write apathy for the examiner, you will be marked wrong. You know why? Because grammatically, it wouldn't fit into the statement. This is how it would look like. I would not tolerate this apathy attitude from you. And that's wrong. Instead, what you can say is, I would not tolerate this apathetic attitude from you. So therefore, the correct synonym is apathetic, not apathy. Take note of this when answering questions on vocabulary. Do not just find the meaning of the underlined. Ensure that they fit and make sense when replaced with the original word grammatically. On this note, we draw the curtains of today's video to a close. If you enjoyed this video, kindly give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out anytime I upload a new video.